we go. Okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make a variable called, let me zoom in a little bit more, clock. That's a built-in SFML type. And if I just call it the letter C, we'll see that it's now going to create this clock variable. It's going to start it at 0 time, and then it's going to keep track of the time as I go. So theoretically, I could see out this letter C like this. Okay. The only problem is with this, that clock is not a string or an int or a float, so cout doesn't know how to output it to the screen. It'll give me an error, a big weird error. There we go. Okay. So the way we get it to print itself out as a string is we go dot here. There's a couple of options that we have available to us. One is called get elapsed time. That's probably the one we want. The other green one is restart. So apparently we can also call a command to reset our clock anytime we want. That can be really useful for us. But let's write get elapsed time. Okay? Is it empty brackets? Yeah, it is empty brackets. Mine doesn't auto type for some reason. Okay, so I'll run that. Now, let's look at this. Still the error there. And the problem is, it says get elapsed time is a time variable. That's also a built-in SFML type. But it's not a string, a float, or a integer either. However, if I hit dot on that one, now I can see that I have an int 64, so a really accurate integer, an int 32, that's our regular integer, and I also have a float. I can print it out as microseconds, milliseconds, or seconds. So I'm just going to print it out as seconds, run it. Let's see if it keeps track of the time in my program. Looks like it's doing that. 1, 2, Mississippi 3, Mississippi 4, Mississippi 5, Mississippi 6, Mississippi 7, 8, 9. So it is keeping track of time. That could be really useful for us. Okay. Why is that so useful for us? Let's also do this. Let's restart our clock right after we print it on the screen. I'm going to run that. What is this going to tell me? This is going to tell me how long it took for my computer to run that loop once. So let me just hold that there. It looks like it's always around 0.015, 0.16. There's some anomalies in there, but for the most part, it looks like it's always around 0.16. Okay? What does that mean if it takes 0.016 seconds to run my loop once? 0.016. That's how many seconds it takes to run my loop once. Okay? I know it's running 60 times a second. What if I times this by 60? Looks like it's very close to the number 1. What if I go 1 divided by 60? Because I know every frame should theoretically should have a length of 1 divided by 60 seconds because I'm running 60 frames per second. That's where that number is coming from. 0.0166 is how long my frame should run because I've set it here to 60. If I get rid of this code, it should run a lot faster. The frame time should be very, very short. Okay, so let me run that. It's much shorter now, and there's a lot of anomaly to it too, because the computer's doing lots of stuff, and sometimes it can't run a frame as fast as it wants to. All right, let's keep that here. Keep that 60 here, and right here, 1 divided by this time. That should give me my FPS in my games. What is my FPS? Always. What's it really close to? It's trying to stay close to 60. It's not always 60. If you've ever run an FPS counter on your games, you'll notice that it goes up and down. But for the most part, it is trying to run 60 times a second. So that's cool. That's a good exercise to figure out how to use time. Let me get rid of my set frame limit of 60. Run it. That's how fast my computer can run this simple program. Sometimes 2,000 frames per second. Sometimes only 700 or 800. Okay. If I were to add more draw commands in here, it would probably slow it down a lot. But for now, the fastest this computer can draw that circle is like 2,000 times a second. Okay, so that's how timers work. I think the best usage of a timer in a game is, let's say I want something to happen every 5 seconds. Here's how I would do it. Okay. I want something to happen every 5 seconds. What I do is I go if c.getElapsedTime dot as seconds, if it's ever greater than 5, okay, then in here I would write my code to do what I want, do whatever, and then I would also restart the clock. Okay, now my clock's going to restart every 5 seconds. Let's see what happens. I'm just going to get rid of this code here. I should restart my clock every 5 seconds. 2, 3, 4, 5. Then it restarts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we're going to make games where we want to like introduce things onto our screen every 5 seconds, or every 10 seconds, or every 1 second. That's how we're going to do it with that clock variable. Okay, pretty simple idea, simple concept. I'll post this